You all ready? Okay, I'll call the meeting to order of the Brazos River Authority Property Management Committee at 9 o'clock this morning on March the, 16th, 2026. Each director received notice of this committee meeting. The public meeting notice was properly posted as required by law. Director Kat Parks indicated she would not be present for this meeting. And we have no people from the public wishing to speak this morning. So we'll proceed with the first item on the agenda and the only item on the agenda. Discussion and possible action on interlocal agreement with Texas AgriLife for boating study at Possum Kingdom Lake, presented by Brad Brunette, Chief Operations Officer. Brad.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see everybody today. We're going to kind of pick up this morning where we left off with the committee back last October at the last committee meeting. Y'all probably recall that we had some discussion about the idea of conducting a boating capacity study at Possum Kingdom Lake at that meeting. And the overall, goals or purpose behind that thought process was twofold. One was to be able to help our staff out at the lake evaluate existing requests that we get for new marinas and that kind of thing. Right now, as well as looking at our property evaluations around the lake. Y'all know we're looking at property and what we do with what we do with property around the lake in the future. What's the best use of that property? And the boating capacity study idea came up as something that could help our thought process and evaluation of those properties as we move forward. So, following the discussion at the last committee meeting, we reached out to the Lower Colorado River Authority. And they've got quite a bit of experience with boating capacity studies over the last 10 or 15 years. They've been working with Texas AgriLife to conduct quite a bit of work around the Highland Lakes, I think primarily Lake Travis and Lake LBJ. And within their study efforts, they're looking at things like use patterns on the lake, crowding, areas of conflict, lake geography, what parts of the lake are more heavily used than others. Characteristics of boaters, the boating characteristics are changing around our lakes as we go through time with different types of boats and so forth. Trends in lake use by boaters, as well as stakeholder perceptions about crowding on the lake and about management of the lake. So a lot of the same things that I think that we have in mind that could be helpful to us. And so after talking with LCRA about that a little bit, they've been very pleased with the work that AgriLife has done for them. And so we reached out to Texas AgriLife to begin discussions on what a study might look like for Possum Kingdom Lake. And today we had Jared Kyle with us from Texas AgriLife, and he's going to give a presentation to you and get your feedback on where we might go with this here for our purposes at Possum Kingdom. And as Jared comes up, you're going to see that his name is spelled Gerard, but he informed me that his mother called him Jared, so it's pronounced Jared. So.
Well, good morning. Thanks for bringing me up here. It's a chilly morning. It's not the same planet that I was on yesterday down in Texas A&M, but what I'll do, give you a brief overview of this. We've been working with LCRA for about 20 years now, doing these what we call boating studies, and it's looking at use and uses of their lakes. The two primary lakes they've had us look at over the years are LBJ and Travis. We have done some studies on Buchanan, Inks, and Marble Falls. They don't get the traffic or the headaches that cause LCRA, like Travis and LBJ. Give them some of the same kinds of things that I'm hearing you're dealing with here at Possum Kingdom. They're concerned about development along the shoreline and its impact on use and uses of the lake. All right.
Too windy outside. Bluetooth doesn't work in this country.
We always batteries in our house.
Good to go. So some of the things that are driving the use on particularly Travis is development around the Austin MSA. And, you know, I love to visit Austin, but I'm sure as glad as I don't live in Austin because of the traffic and growth that's occurring around there. And that's impacting, you know, the volume on their lakes. And so with that volume comes issues related to safety and quality of the experience. So when we do these studies, we broadly look at 6 objectives to determine the characteristics of the boaters, and I'm just going to focus on Travis here. So we just literally, as I speak to you, just wound up a study on LBJ and Travis this year. And these are the kinds of questions we ask when we look at a study. And I'll talk about the design in which we collect the data. We do, broadly, the two biggest pieces of data we get, we do a property survey, a survey questionnaire to shoreline property owners around the lake. And then we also do another survey of registered boaters in a 5-county area around the lake. It doesn't capture all of the use and characteristics of the users because many do travel from a long way, but we get a large percentage of the users, the boaters on the lake. The other thing we do is this aerial counts, and so we have a contractor that we work with that does a flight over the lake and with a videographer in there and captures the distribution of boaters and the kinds of boats across the lake. And we'll do that on 4 occasions, on Memorial Day, July 4 and Labor Day as well, and then we'll pick a random weekday throughout the summer. And then we literally just count the boats and situate where they are on the lake. And those flights occur between 2 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, generally around the peak use periods. This year was a little different on Travis and LBJ. We had that July 4 weather event, and that closed the lake down for almost a month. And so the use this year is looks a little different than it was in the years past. Now, it picked up back in August. One of the things heading into that July 4 weekend was the lake was really getting low on Travis. So that changes the kinds of use, pushes a lot of people back up onto LBJ. But after that weather event, the lake rose by 40 feet. And so August use was much more typical than previous years. So some of the questions, I'm just going to slide through this data. You know, it's hard, I don't know how much you can see that. It's just where they're coming from. And we do the same here with you, with Possum Kingdom, but where are boaters coming from? Most of them are shoreline property owners because that's the people we surveyed, and then the 5-county region. Then we ask, you know, a lot of their experience on the lake, how long they've been boating, how many, the occasions boating over we call it the boating season, and it runs from Memorial Day all the way through Labor Day. I'm going to just show you a few excerpts. So Lake Travis is a long lake, right? So we worked with LCRA to break the lake up into 27 management compartments. And so when we present findings like this, we present it by compartment. And what you're seeing is just one area. It's not the full length of the lake, it's just the most eastern portion of the lake. And so we asked where they entered the lake, their favourite area of the lake. Now often the favourite area is also the area that many boaters avoid. And that's that eastern basin is probably one of the most popular areas. But a lot of people like that area, but they also avoid that area. And I think looking at Possum Kingdom, you might do the same thing, break it into management compartments, because the use isn't uniform across the lake, I'm guessing. But I'm going to bet that the use isn't, what's happened in one area of the lake is a little different from another area of the lake. And that might inform your decision about what you might do with certain things on those properties. We also unsafe areas, and then we also map out that aerial count, and we'll map that out and display that for you, so you get a picture for where boating's occurring. One of the big issues that's come up this year that's been a little different from previous years with LCRA is the issue of party boats. These are those, you know, up to 100 people on a boat. They're becoming more prevalent on LBJ. On Travis. I don't know whether that's an issue you're dealing with on Possum Kingdom yet, but it might be coming your way. Then we ask other questions. One question that's really kind of we've monitored over the years is we call it a crowding scale, and we ask them on a scale of 1 to 9 how crowded they feel, with 1 being not at all and 9 being extremely. And you can see, and then we've been able to map this over the years. So back in 2008 it was about 4.6, which is in the middle. But then you see that there's a spike in 2021, and then in 2025 it's come back down. I think the reason it came back down this year was that weather event. It kept a lot of people off the lake over the year. Even when they opened the lake back up, people weren't really comfortable. There's issues of water quality and debris in the lake. And then I'm not going to go through these. We asked them about management preferences for the lake, what things they support and what things they oppose. I won't go through each of these items. So with Possum Kingdom, I think there are some trends across the state whole with land fragmentation, rising property values, population growth. These are all going to, haven't studied Possum Kingdom, but I'm going to bet some of these things are impinging upon the use of the lake, and it's maybe the reason why I'm here today. But you can see the pattern of growth and where the fragmentation is occurring across the state. And you can see in the DFW that it is starting to stretch west. So I'm not going to, this is more of the same kind of data. And just population growth is going to put pressure upon the lake, inevitably. So similar to what we did on Lake Travis, we'd be doing the same here, replicating the same design that we would for Possum Kingdom. We'd conduct a survey of shoreline property owners. This is something we can talk about. So we'd get registered boat data. We have a good relationship with Texas Parks and Wildlife, and they will give us names and email addresses of registered boaters within whatever counties we desire, we choose. And I think there's a lot of use coming out of that DFW area, so that might be included in that sampling plan. And then we'd also do the 4 flights over the summer period. So yeah, that's a repeat of what I was talking about before. But if you have any questions, yes, sir.
I've got a couple of questions. It's been years since I've been on Travis, but one of the issues, and I happen to live at Possum Kingdom, so my experience may be peculiar, but one of the things we get lots of complaints about is the impact on the shoreline from white boats and people who operate in those areas. Is that anything you address?
We asked the question, and it comes up. It's been coming up probably for about the last 10 to 15 years. It used to be jet skis used to be the problem, but now it's these wakeboarding boats and the damage they cause to those bulkheads and shorelines on the lake. But it happens on LBJ too.
So you can quantify that,
We could ask to the extent to which it's a problem.
but then when you take your aerials, you'll be able to quantify.
No, the aerials, well, actually, we do identify the kind of boat. So maybe we do identify the kind of boat and where it is on the lake so we can capture that. So I don't know, we can tell you where the wakeboard boat might be, and the shoreline property owner will tell you they're a problem. As to what you do with that information, that's one of the things that we don't do in these studies is provide management guidance. So we can quantify the data, we can quantify the issue. These are the experts, so they know the lake. And in the context of LCRA, they use the data to inform a decision. We don't say you need to ban wakeboard boats we would not touch that. That's not for us to determine.
But if on kind of springboarding off of David's question, if I'm understanding, you probably could identify in what areas these wakeboard boats are concentrated, if they are concentrated.
Yeah, we can do that.
And then perhaps we could identify what areas of shoreline might be sensitive. Okay, my other question is there any attempt to interface with the law enforcement to see if there's any correlation between lake use and incidents,
Citations.
collisions?
We haven't done that with CPWD. The LCRA have their own enforcement division, but we've not used that data or accessed that data. I don't know to what extent we could get that, but I could ask the question, but I'm not sure.
On that same topic, if you don't mind, does your survey of lake users talk about safety perception? Do you feel on these holidays, boating activities provide a safe boating opportunity, or would your survey bring out people saying we don't get on the lake because of the way boats?
We asked those questions. We
Okay.
asked about what areas of the lake are unsafe. We asked the reason why they feel it's unsafe. I haven't asked about what day
Useful.
of the year, but one could surmise that it would be the public holiday weekends. But we can ask that question, though.
Can you, like, divide it into areas where, say, wake boats would be a problem and maybe should be restricted? Please
Yeah,
get that detailed.
if we compartmentalise the lake into what we call them management units, we ask the question of where on the lake do you feel unsafe and the reason why, and we could spatially identify that. Now, we wouldn't tell you that you need to restrict wakeboards there or whatever. That would be an agency decision.
Obviously.
Any other questions from the committee members? Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Your presentation. Brad?
So I think the staff's recommendation is that we move forward and contract, do an interlocal agreement with Texas AgriLife to do one of these at Possum Kingdom. And so we've got a resolution for the committee that would basically make that recommendation that we would take to the board in a couple of weeks. So that's what we've got for you today. We can go ahead and pull up the resolution. I don't know if there's any more discussion or any questions that y'all have of staff before we do that.
Any other discussion? Go
Brad,
ahead.
are there other people who do the survey, or did you just look into AgriLife?
We focused on AgriLife because LCRA's relationship with them, and we can do an interlocal agreement with them as opposed to, going out and hiring a private company. We talked a little bit with the Corps of Engineers as well, and they do them, but it's kind of, I guess, a little more random across the country depending on what their issues are.
And then help me understand, what specific outcomes are we looking for?
So there's two things there. I guess number one, currently as we sit here today, if Troy up at Possum Kingdom were to get a request, tomorrow for a new marina in some part of the lake, we would have data from this study that's going to show, is that part of the lake in one of these areas that's already crowded or deemed to be unsafe by people or not? And, that would help us in being able to set our policy and decisions on whether we permit those. Looking forward into the future with regard to the additional property that we have around the lake, same kind of thing. If we have a large tract of land that we're looking at through our evaluation process here in the near future, that we're looking at what to do with that property, and, it's in an area of the lake that is already crowded, heavily crowded, unsafe, sensitive, those kind of things, then it may influence this committee and our decision on whether we divest of that or retain it, or whether we put restrictions in place if we do divest on it of what can be done with it so that we don't compound and create additional crowding or safety issues on different parts of the lake.
I think that's one of the main advantages of this type of survey is sometimes a developer will want to come in and build 500 homes, then he'll want to build a marina for 500 boats to give everybody a slip. And there are certain areas of the lakes that just won't support that. And we need to find out what they are.
The other thing that will be very valuable from this, and I can relate to this at this age now, having gone to the cardiologist, you're establishing a baseline. So if we do this and the board doesn't make any policy changes or we don't make any decisions on it, that's okay, because if we do this once every 5 years, then we'll begin to understand how traffic patterns are changing and safety issues that we have. So this could be a really good baseline data input for us to use managing a reservoir.
And it's not a real expensive item either. It's not like building a dam or anything.
Yeah, I think it's about $120,000 is roughly the quote that we've got.
Yeah. Wes?
Can we, as we do this, if we're gonna do it anyway, let's think about like our law enforcement presence. I don't know if there is, and Jared may know if the, Parks and Wildlife, the game wardens have GIS data on where they are writing tickets, DWIs,
It's the sheriff.
I think it would be a good exercise as a part of this, at least at a minimum, for our staff to get with Palo Pinto County and get that from the sheriff's department and get that from the game wardens. I think that'd be very valuable
I don't know
to
if they-
overlay.
I don't know if they have GIS data that'll plot where things happen. I think that would be cool and potentially very useful to see.
And then, I have another
Go ahead.
question. So in the Properties Committee, remind me, have we already identified some of those properties around the lake that have, that we feel like are able to sell at some point? Or, I guess what I'm saying is that would we ever sell a property to a developer for a 5-year scenario right on the lake if we feel like it's going to impede with the fish and the natural habitats that we've already gone through? So I guess my question is, I mean, are we gonna have somebody surveying something an area that we already feel like we don't want to touch for future development because of what Tiffany and her group have come to us on? I mean, I guess the lake is so big, and I just feel like we need to give some parameters of what we want surveyed.
So we've looked at, so far with the property evaluation process, we started on that upper end of the lake, and the decision that I think at the last board meeting, you guys approved us retaining ownership of all those properties on the upper end that are in the floodplain. But down lower on the lake where we've got more boating activity and more property, we haven't gone through the evaluation process yet. We've got that matrix that Tiffany put in place to do that. But this topic was something that came up at the last meeting as an additional piece of information that will be a part of that process. So we haven't per se gone through that yet with all those properties. This was something that would fill in a gap that we would need to do that.
Director Lattimore?
I think it's going to be really important that we use the results of this study, just as Mr. Collinsworth mentioned, as a baseline for a multitude of purposes. I think it's going to be really important that we interface with the law enforcement authorities and, as Director Lloyd mentioned, maybe get an overlay from them as to, even if they don't have exact location data, if we could just interview those deputies and say, what areas of the lake are you seeing most of the enforcement action? Now, if they had GIS data, that would be better. But if they could tell us, we're seeing most of our enforcements in this area.
I think they'd
I
be
think
able to
that
tell
would
us
help.
that too.
The other thing that I have, probably the majority of the complaints that I get have to do with boat wakes and erosion along the shoreline. And that's something that we as a board are going to have to deal with. So I think that this study is going to be really important. From that standpoint, it's something we're going to have to deal with. So having said that, I obviously think it's important that we do this study.
I think so too.
I have a question. I'm gonna follow up
Kent,
with.
you're not part of the committee, so you're not,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
not trying to be a hard nose or
I
anything.
understand.
But since you're not on the committee,
You fill out a public comment card.
Public comment, 3 minutes.
we have to list only people on the committee speak, so I know it's important, but
Okay.
we'll have to hold it. Any other questions from
I
the
have a
committee?
question. It may not be related to this, but do we know from a water quality standpoint, do we monitor like houseboats with waste facilities on them and things like that already, or is that something we could?
I don't know.
I know that,
Tiffany or
I
Randall
already
have-
gather that the aerial survey will identify what's a houseboat, what's a fishing boat, what's a wake boat, but.
Right. It will identify it. In terms of what we currently monitor with regard to, houseboats that have like, a restroom on them, yeah, we don't track that right now.
We did,
There aren't very many.
There aren't.
historically, we did through a program with TCEQ where we would do inspections on houseboats because it's illegal for them on inland waters to be able to discharge. Years ago, TCEQ kind of changed their policies to where no longer inspections are required. So since that time, that kind of went away because nobody was required to bring their boats to us to get the inspection to get their registration approval on their sanitary system. But I do think it was a very low number when we were doing surveys. There aren't many out there that had restroom facilities on them, much less capable of discharging.
Thank you, Tiffany.
It is an interesting question, though, given, what Jared mentioned earlier, too, about LCRA, is now starting to deal with these big party boats, where they've got a lot of people on a boat out, I guess, cruising around the lake. And I don't know that we've seen that yet, but LCRA hadn't seen that either 10 years ago, and now they're seeing that. So something to be considered as well.
Okay, if there are no more questions, would you like to read the resolution, please, Brad?
Yes, sir. Be it hereby resolved that the Property Management Committee recommends to the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority adoption of the following proposed resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager/CEO to execute an interlocal agreement with Texas AgriLife Research, an agency of the state of Texas and member of the Texas A&M University System, under which Texas AgriLife Research will conduct a boating capacity study for Possum Kingdom Lake.
You've heard a reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Director Lattimore, a second?
Second.
Director Ford, poll the committee, please.
Chairman Huber,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director LaChance,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Presiding Officer Flores,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Wilson,
Yes. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at this time. Director LaChance made the motion, second, Director Lattimore, all in favor? Aye, and we are adjourned. To our guests,